Hello everyone and welcome to another scrapbook layout process video where I'm going to be scrapbooking some more photos from my recent Canada and Alaska trip, and this portion is when we were hiking in Lynn Canyon Park. I'm probably going to do 3 double-page spreads from this hike because for me this was such a wonderful experience to be hanging out with all the creative design team girls, and being around these trees and this area is definitely not something that we experience here in Australia. There is a small redwood forest in Victoria that I haven't been to, but going on a big hike with the girls was really a highlight. So I wanted to do a layout that just celebrated the trees themselves and all the fun photos that we took along the way. Now I've got some large photos here. These are some 5x7 prints, and I print at home and I use a program called Artisan. So I thought it would be good to do collage type photos, but I also wanted to share with you that you can achieve this result in an app called Frame, which is something that I recommend people using. You do need to have a subscription to it if you don't want their watermark on it, but you can select 4 photos and have the 3:4 ratio and print these as a 5x7 photo so that you get this sort of collage look. And then I wanted 2 large photos as well on each side. But when I was looking at my photos, I knew that I wanted to have all these fun photos of us all walking through the trees, hugging the trees, taking photos of people hugging the trees. It was such a fun experience. There were a lot of laughs and the beauty of this area was absolutely amazing to me. So I did want to do a double-page spread celebrating these photos. And I'm going to be using a sketch from the Creative Design Team's 12x12 Volume 2 book. And it's on page 17. And when I was looking at this, I wanted to have sort of a linear look to the photos and have them all going across. So I think what I'm going to do is spread these out so that they go across my page like this. To set up with the 2 4x6 photos here, I'm using 2 5x7 photos, and then I'm just continuing that pattern across. But with this large section here, I know that I can cut my piece of paper using the cutting guide. There's all the measurements on here, and I can still use this cutting guide to follow this sketch. I will have to overlap my photos a little bit onto this edge for these strips because I'm going to bring in Country Woods papers. I don't have full sheets of this left apart from a few of them. I'm thinking that I'm going to use this paper here because when I put these with my photos, I can have, I've got some green tape stuck on my finger here. I'll just get rid of that. Because I like that I can have the direction of this wood grain going in the direction of the trees. I think I'm going to have to buy myself another packet of this paper. I was looking at this one here. This would work quite well because there are some gold tones in my photos, but I really love the depth of this darker wood grain. So I'm going to cut these down to follow the sketch and then build on it with the strips and some more embellishments. I'm going to do some controlled paper tearing, so I'll show you how I do that because I do want to make sure that I get this edge that's in the sketch here so that it starts around here and comes down across the photo here. So part of this photo is going to hang over the edge of the paper tear because I am working with larger size photos than what's in the sketch. The other things that I'm thinking of bringing in is this Forever Forest stamp set, not necessarily the dies. And I watched Jama do a video the other day where she used this textured timber stamp set. So I'm definitely going to be bringing that in because I think it's going to work really well with these photos. And I might be doing some stamping with this brand new Golden Greenery stamp set, and I have the dies for those as well, so I can stamp these. These are layered stamps, so you can stamp the base and stamp the extra layer over the top, or you can do it the other way around. You can stamp this area and stamp over the top. So there are 3 different sets of leaves that will work for this. So that's what I'm thinking of using at the moment, but I want to get the base of my pages laid out first. I've got my wood grain pieces cut, and before I adhere everything down, I want to do my controlled paper tear, and I also want to do some stamping with this textured timber set. I'm going to use this one here. So the first thing I'm going to do is my controlled tearing, and I'm just going to move this white piece out of the way for a moment. I want to do my tear so that it starts around this area here and finishes here. So I'm just going to use my water brush. I'm just going to put some water on this area here, just so I know where I'm going to start from and around here. And I can see this. I know that it's pretty hard to see that on camera, that I am just going to lay down some water along here so that I can control where this tear goes a little bit more. I could just tear it by drawing a little line, but when you put water down on the page, it tends, and I think I need just to add a little bit more. So I'm just going to load this up a bit more and add some more water and let that soak in a little bit so that my tear will follow that water just a little bit. So it is following along from where I've put that water down. So that helped me control that just a little bit more. I'll put this piece aside. And for the right page, I want to do some stamping as well. And I'm going to just lay my photos back down here again and put a couple of little pencil lines so that I know where the edge of my photo is roughly going to be. So around here, here, this is the edge of where my paper torn piece is, and here. So I know that I can do all my stamping above and around these areas here. It looks a little bit messy, but I'm hoping that you get the visual from that so you know I've got a rough guide here of where I'm going to be doing my stamping. So these textured timber stamps are rubber stamps, so they're the cling stamps. So I don't need to have a soft surface at all with these because the ink does go into these quite well straight from the stamp image. It's got a bit of a spongy effect anyway. With the joys of recording, I actually didn't press record when I was going to do my stamping. So I'm going to walk through this and then give you a demonstration of how I achieved this end result. I did do some stamping first up in first generation espresso, but when I brought in my pieces here, the pattern paper and the photos, it really took over from the page here. I was looking more at these stamped images than I was at my actual photos. Now, this was second generation espresso, so I had a little bit of a play. I turned my page over and I had tested this out with a scrap piece of paper first, and I thought it would be okay, but it was just too much of a strong pattern above and below my photos here that it distracted from my focal point, which for me is my photos. So I'm going to show you how I achieved this result with espresso ink, or I should say early espresso. So this is the early espresso from Stampin' Up, and the Stampin' Up ink pads are a lot more juicier than the Close to My Heart ones. So you only need a light touch, and this is even more the case when you're using a red rubber or a cling stamp here. So you can see I've got some ink around the edges here. I want to be careful that I don't transfer this onto my projects at all. So what I decided to do was actually fourth generation stamping. I have inked this up quite lightly. I need a firm surface with this red rubber stamp, and I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, and then use the fourth stamping to give me that color tone here. And what I love about this, because I'm not pressing really hard when I'm stamping, I'm just doing a gentle stamp, I'm getting added color in here with darker areas of the early espresso that is coming through. And I'm going to be making some tags for this layout, so I may as well just keep stamping this so that I can cut my tags from this piece of white cardstock. So you can see here I've got that graduation of color. Now, bearing in mind this is a brand new ink pad, so it hasn't been re-inked or anything, it's just only been unwrapped from its packaging, so it's going to have more ink on there than one if you've been using for a long time. So you just need to have a play around with your stamping off to see what color you're going to get, to test it out before you do your actual stamping onto your finished project here. So the sketch actually calls for 2 strips coming down this side, and now I realize that this piece here and possibly this one here is going to be covered up quite a bit by that strip. So I'm going to do some more stamping onto the edges of this, and this was 4th generation. So I'm just going to ink this up again and bring one in from this edge over here so it will come out of where those strips are going. And there was also some banner pieces on this sketch as well, but I'm not sure I'm going to put those in because I've got 5x7 photos here. I don't have as much real estate as what the sketch does because they're 4x6 photos. So I'm just going to bear in mind the height of that before I make a decision on cutting banners. I'm just going to put another one down on this edge here. And that hasn't quite stamped as beautifully as I wanted it to, but I'm going to be using some leaves and things, so I'll be able to cover some of that up. So let's bring in the pattern papers I've decided to use. I did audition quite a few of the Country Woods papers to see what I wanted to have as those strips. I'm just going to bring the sketch in again. You can see there's strips coming down here. So there are 2 here. And what I was thinking was bringing in the reverse side of this paper, but I don't love it that much. And then I thought I would bring in this pattern paper because it's got some of the goldy tones that are within the woods here. So I'm just going to lay that down and see if I like that up against it. And it's a bit too bright. I was thinking of cutting another piece of this. I used this on the first layout I did of this hike, but I'm thinking I might go outside of this paper packet altogether. And I've got this sheet here that I was playing with the other day with my railway line photos that I recently posted. So it's the Season of Green and Gold. And I might cut some leaves from here, but I'm thinking of doing some stamping with it. But on the reverse side, there is this green, and I might just cut the smaller strip in this green because it really does bring the green of these photos to life. And then there is a specialty designer series paper called Nature's Sweetness, and it has this text with the gold flecks. And I'm thinking I might like to bring that one in as well. So I'm going to cut these strips and I'm going to ink the edges of these so that it gives them a little bit more definition. And then I'll be thinking about my title, which is going to go along here. And I think I'm going to be doing some stamping with either this stamp or one of the others of here to decorate the title. So I'll be back once I have cut these pieces and adhered them down. I'm going to do some stamping because I want to add some of these sprigs here. I've decided to use these ones here because I think they're going to suit really well. And I wanted to show you what I have done with these and the colors that I've used. And I've also used this stamp again to create my title. So I'll just put this off to the side. This one has this die that matches. The dies match all of these. So the little heart ones here, they're matched by this die, and then these ones are matched as well. But this set has additional dies as well, which is really good. So there's a lot of varieties here. I'll just put this off to the side, and I'm going to do some generational stamping. I know I do a lot of that. I really love it so that I can get just the color tone that I want. So what I normally do is bring in some scratch paper. It's not the true white like the white cardstock that I use. This is close to my heart cardstock. I've still got some of that before I need to order some Stampin' Up, but it won't be long before I need to do that. So this is the base layer. It's more solid. So I'm just going to ink this up and try first and then second. I need to ink it just a little bit better than that. So first and then second. And I really like the look of second generation stamping. And I could actually probably do a third generation if I wanted to. I didn't quite get the stamping even for this, but it's okay because this is just a test run to make sure I like what I'm doing. So I'll just put this one aside. And then I decided to suit my photos and everything, I'm going to do the next piece in espresso. So if I was using first generation, I could put this one over top of that and you can see the depth of color here. And this is just too dark for my photos. I'll bring in the layout here just so that you can have a look. You can see that's just a little bit too dark. It's going to pull focus. So what I decided to do was second generation of Old Olive, and I'm actually going to do third generation of espresso. And I quite like the softness of this. So I'm going to stamp onto my white daisy piece. I need to keep this in here though so I can stamp off first. And it is a learning curve I'm finding with the Stampin' Up ink pads. They ink up without much pressure at all. So I'm going to stamp off and then I'm going to stamp my, what's this one called? Old Olive. And that's a beautiful soft green. I really love the look of that. And then I'm going to come in with the overlay part. And I'm going to use the early espresso. I did try a couple of other greens, but the greens were just a little bit too bright with this. So I'm just going to try this in third generation because I just want a subtle look. And I did put my head over this so I could line it up a little bit better. And I really love the softness of this. So this is the color combination that I ended up using for my piece. But what I suggest that you do when you're working out what colors to use, especially when you're experimenting with new Stampin' Up colors, if you've come across from Close to My Heart, or even if you've been stamping for quite some time, it's always good to have some test runs so that you can get the look that you want. And this is the die here, and that fits beautifully over top, and then you just run that through your die cutting machine. So I'm going to bring my pages back in. And I've tucked some of these sprigs around certain areas. Now, I haven't put this one down as yet because I wanted to show you. And also I had a gap up here as well. So I was able to camouflage that by putting some of the sprigs around. It was the same case down here as well. So I've just added some of these stamped elements underneath here for the tag to sit on with these two elements here as well. So that gives that a place. The two tags I've tucked in underneath this large photo here, and they've got the wood grain stamped behind it, and also a couple of these leaf sprigs here, and a bit of a cluster over on this side. So to hide that, I'm going to tuck this one underneath here, and now you can't even tell that I haven't quite got the stamping right for this. And I just wanted to bring one of these letters up close. So what I've done is stamp some of the sliced wood grain piece here, and then I've used an alphabet die. I don't quite have one with the Stampin' Up set, so I have used the Close to My Heart die here, and it's the outlined alphabets. I did try doing this with the alphabet a la mode, but they were just a little bit too skinny, and I wanted a weightier alphabet here. So if you have an alphabet like this in your stash, then you can definitely try this technique, because what I wanted was more of this wood grain to actually show up on the letters. And then I went round all the edges of those with my blending tool so that I could ink up the edges just to give them a bit of definition for when I'm putting them onto the actual page. I have put some of these adhesive back sparkle gems on here. I know that these are a black. I could have used the gold, but I quite liked them up against the deepness of this wood grain paper. So I'm just going to bring this up so you can have a little look at the tag. This is about 8th generation stamping here. When I did it originally, it was just a little bit too bold when I put my journaling on there, and I wanted the journaling to be read easily, but you still get the texture of this gorgeous stamp image here. So as always, I will have links in the description below for everything that I have used, as well as a link to the Creative Design Team's 12 by 12 Volume 2 sketchbook. There's so many good sketches in here, and I know that I have used this several times, and I'll be using it again, especially over the course of creating this album. I did vary it a little bit from the original sketch because I haven't put the banners in here, but I have moved the strips over a little bit, and I just think there is enough up in this corner. And I'm just going to hold this up so that you can see the gold foil splatters on this. I absolutely love it, and I think it works quite well with these photos, and I've brought that in over here with the tag, as well as this green strip and tag that I've cut here from the Season of Green and Gold Designer Series paper, which has just gone online this week. So check out the links below. There will be a link for all the new products as well, because there is a brand new online release. And I really love how all of this has come together, especially with my collage of 5 by 7 photos here. You can see just how much fun we are having walking through this wonderful area of Lynn Canyon. As always, thank you so much for tuning in. Happy crafting, and I hope to see you next time. Bye for now.